Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast Mayday, what's your location? Get up and out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, baby. Water in that 2.5 inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5 inch line. To the rope, to the rope. To the 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter and paramedic line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I'm Paul, and today I'm joined by my co-host Doug. Denis is unable to join us because he's been evacuated in Nova Scotia because of the wildfires there, and Dirk is busy teaching a new recruit class in his fire department. So it's Doug and I today, two-man show. Hey Doug, how's it going?
Hey Paul, it's going well. I'm busy. Seems like I'm busy as always, but I shouldn't be busy because I just finished vacation from work. But all I did on my vacation was work a bunch of extra shifts and a little bit of overtime and a little bit of side job, and then my wife's at work. So when I'm not at work, I'm at home doing daddy duty, which I'm not complaining about. I'm just saying, but it keeps things busy. And then we had a unexpected death in the extended family, which took up a bunch of time and emotions and dealing with all of that. And so it was kind of nice to come home and get back to work and back in a little bit of a routine. So unfortunately, the Oilers playoff run came to an end early, which I was not thrilled about because I thought they had a legit chance of winning this year. But as we say, there's always next year. And the good part is we won one more game than Toronto did. So that's something we can be happy about. But,
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, you said Denny is evacuated because of the fires in Nova Scotia. I had a shift where we went to backfill one of the affected fire departments because they were all busy fighting a fire. So our department went and stood by in their fire hall for, I don't know, we probably were there for 3 weeks maybe, doing a day or 2 days at a time. So that was, when I went, it was for a day. And we didn't get any calls. So we just went there and covered off and then came home. But it's an early start to our Alberta fire season, and it's not going to stop I always tongue in cheek a little bit say that, like, you never put out a forest fire, winter just shows up and then the fires all go away. So if we're waiting for winter, it's going to be a long, busy summer.
Yeah, thankfully we're getting a bit of rain today, but yeah, it's super hot. I know. I noticed even down east, I saw a temperature 35 Celsius in Miramichi, New Brunswick, which is crazy. And I heard on the radio this morning, Saskatchewan, Manitoba are really hot, and way up north, like Prince Albert and Waskesiu and stuff, are really warm. So we could be in for, and they said it's going to be a warm summer in Western Canada because of the El Nino. So this will continue, I imagine, which maybe there'll be better planning and prevention moving forward. We can only hope. Sorry about your loss of your family member there. Definitely think of you with that situation.
Yeah, thanks. It was unexpected, so it was a big wake-up call, and
yeah, it's tough.
Not easy to deal with, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I know we've been super busy too. My son had a motorcycle accident and fortunately just broke his collarbone, which is minor, so it's good, except he's off work and can't do stuff, and which ruined his vacation. And then my wife's car got rear-ended just the other day, brand new car. So, and we're getting ready to go camping. We're kind of in the in-between 3 weeks between two big trips, so everything's getting pressed for time. So it's putting pressure on the podcast anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how it is. Hey, yeah. I finished that Krupp book you bugged me about. I finished it. Yeah, I finished it. So, yeah, I know.
It feels like it's been forever since I've been on a podcast here. I know you've done 2 or 3 at least episodes, and I haven't even had time to listen to them. I think I might have listened to part of one. I don't know, but it's it's nice. I always say this, but it's nice to just sit here and chat about fire stuff a little bit and put the rest of
Yeah,
the old
we
for
did that Pang fire with you were on that one, weren't you?
no,
With Chief Rutley?
no.
Yes, you are. Yes, you were. You and Dirk and Denis wasn't on there, and Denis was with us for another one and
Oh
for a
no, you're
tailboard.
right. I was there.
Yeah, yeah, we did the tailboard about technology versus tradition and automatic nozzles and automatic governor controls and all that stuff that we really would have liked to have you there. But Denis tried to hold up his end of the stick and
Funny,
your end of the stick.
I went and speaking of governor controls, Dirk and I actually went and taught a pump course at one of our rural departments here in Alberta, and the whole. I mean, we're Canada, right? Everything's KPA, blah blah blah, and we go use their truck. Saw it for the first time that morning. Power was off. Just walked around, looked, everything's fine, and then we go get. I mean, it's like basic intro to pump ops, as in like, here's the throttle, and then there's the big master intake and discharge gauges, right? So here's the throttle. Look, and I look up, and this truck doesn't have the big master intake
Oh, they're
and discharge
digital.
gauges. It only has the digital one on
Mm.
the governor control. And then I'm looking at this, and I'm like, that's a really low number. Then I realized that the governor control is in PSI, not
Yeah.
KPA. And
Yeah.
like I never learned pumping in PSI, so I'm trying to think. I'm like, that's close enough to what the number should be. But it was a quick like I mean it was adapting on the fly, I guess, trying to teach people that, and then the number's like, oh, it's only like 40, not 800, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah.
But then I
know.
looked at the rest of the truck and it all made sense. I mean, I don't think this county has a lot of money, and the truck's just like a stock, almost demo tanker, 1,000-gallon tanker kind of thing, but
Right.
from the United States somewhere, right? Like some little truck company I've never even heard of. And,
Okay.
and so I'm sure they just bought it off the lot, and it is what it is. And
Fouts or Deep South?
yeah, if you said it, I'd probably remember, but I don't know. It was a Freightliner International 2-door cab with a pretty basic tanker body on it, but
Anyway, yeah, I taught a course the first week of May. I haven't taught pump course since 2016. I think maybe I did an evaluation. I think in 2018 or 19. But anyway, yeah, it was, and I convert because I'm in PSI, but I convert everything to liters and KPA in my head. So once I got playing with it for a while, I got better after the end of the two.
And
days.
the other truck we used was, I think I sent you a picture, like a 1996 Freightliner 4-door cab with a superior body, manual throttle, relief valve, manual handle.
Nice.
And I said to the guys, I'm like, it's great that we're learning on this truck, because if you can figure out this truck,
This one.
you'll have
The other
no
one's
problem
easy.
with that one. Like it's
The other one's easy.
that one will feel like you're on autopilot. Like this
Perfect.
one, I said, you are the governor on this one. That one, it has one. This one, it's you.
Yep, for sure.
That's what I used to say to everybody in Lacombe about Engine 1, right? We had
Yeah.
the tower was basically all electronic. Engine 4 was manual pull valves with electronic governor, and Engine 1 was completely manual. So everybody was a little intimidated about it, right? And I said, don't worry, we'll learn on this truck, and if you can do this, you'll have no problem with the other two.
That's right. Good times for sure. Okay. Well, since we're in Wildland season and it's June, I picked a Wildland fire episode for this week's incident. So on Saturday, April 9th of 2011, a 49-year-old male volunteer firefighter suffered third-degree burns over 60% of his body during wildland firefighting operations. After getting burned by a fast-moving wildfire, the victim was transported from the incident scene to a local hospital, later transferred to a large metropolitan hospital burn center. He remained in critical condition until his death on April 20th, 2011.
So the victim's fire department was a volunteer fire department with one station, staffed by 17 volunteer firefighters. The department provides fire protection for an incorporated area of 2 square miles, serving about 2,600 residents. The department maintained limited records and cannot substantiate the number of responses or incidents they responded to annually, nor could they produce training records for members. Pretty small department, and like
I
don't
was
know where
down
you,
in
yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was down in Texas and Oklahoma and stuff like that, where I thought, the fire service would be different, but in the rural areas, I found it so similar to rural Western Canada. The little fire departments and the equipment and the training and stuff was so similar. I was quite surprised actually when I stopped in at some fire stations when I was working down there in the early 2000s. In Texas, all volunteer firefighter training requirements, certification requirements, and standards are determined by the local fire department. The victims department reported that they did not have any training or certification requirements for individuals to join and participate as a member of their department. They were also unable to provide any documentation of any formal fire training or certification for the victim during his tenure as a firefighter. It was unknown or documented how long the victim was actually a member of the fire department. The incident commander at the incident was a career lieutenant from a combination fire department in the municipality that serves as the county seat. The incident commander had completed incident management training, IS 100, 200, 300, 400, Advanced ICS, 800A, National Fire Response Plan. In addition, he had Texas Firefighter Basic, Intermediate, Fire Service Instructor, Inspector, Basic, Hazardous Materials, Public Educator. So obviously highly trained, EMT, the whole deal. He had 8 hours of wildland firefighter training during Texas Firefighter Basic. So that was he had 8 hours of wildland firefighter training during the Texas Firefighter Basic course, included in his 1001 and Firefighter 1.
Which isn't very much, and probably if
No.
you're if you're a Houston or Dallas firefighter, probably good enough. But if you're out in the sticks as a rural volunteer firefighter, you probably should have a little more wildland training. And interviews with the firefighters indicated that formalized wildland firefighting training was not a requirement for firefighters in this region. Is it all the departments we've been on, it's not a requirement either.
It's not a requirement here either. I know I've served on several incidents as incident commander, and I always questioned, like, okay, what training do these firefighters that we're bringing in actually have? Do they have the NFPA 1051 or other similar courses? And it's a challenge everywhere. And this is exactly what happens. The equipment and personnel of this department on April 9th, 2011, 3 county departments were alerted for the wildland fire that was burning into their fire protection area. The following apparatus and personnel from the 2 departments directly involved with the fatality responded to the incident. There was 2 Type 6 wildland apparatus, so that's a very small pump with a tank and pump and roll. There was 5 firefighters, including the victim, with those 2 apparatus, so it was 3 and 2. 1 Type 1 structural engine with 2 firefighters. 1 Type 1 water tender with 1 firefighter, and 2 command units, a fire chief and a lieutenant.
The weather on April 9th, 2011 was a hot, dry, windy day. The temperature at the time of the incident was approximately 87 degrees Fahrenheit. Relative humidity was 9%. The barometric pressure was 29.68, and the wind speed was about 31 miles per hour, gusting to 42 miles per hour. I don't know what that is in metric as we talk, but I think you said 87 is about 30 degrees Celsius. So
it's got to be
that falls right close to, if not into the 30-30 crossover that we're told about, where above 30 degrees and below 30% humidity, and that's way below 30% humidity, is a pretty good cocktail for a fire. And then you add in some wind, and it's like the whipped cream on top. So they were a day that was bad day to have a fire, I guess.
Definitely a red flag warning for aggressive fire behavior. So at just before 2 o'clock on April 9th, 2011, fire dispatch alerted the local departments of a wildland fire. The area of the fire is normally lush green grass for raising beef cattle, but at the time of the incident, the area was considered desert grassland, and fuels consisted of prairie grass, yucca plants, and sage. The Texas Panhandle was experiencing extreme wildfire conditions due to a combination of a drought, dry vegetation, and high temperatures, low humidity, and high winds. The fire started when the high winds caused power lines to arc, igniting the brush. The fire was primarily wind-driven as it burned northeast into the county where the firefighter fatality occurred. It's sort of like that many fires in California. I know the Paradise campfire, they called it, burned Paradise, California down, and 19,000 structures, 96 lives, burned down the whole community basically, and it was a power line on a pole that the insulator broke. Pacific Gas and Electric is being held responsible for the fire. Lieutenant from the local combination department was first to respond to the fire in a command vehicle. He responded with 2 brush trucks, Booster 2 and Booster 58 from his department. Upon arriving at the Wildland fire at 14:16 hours, he established himself as command and reported the fire as manageable. Booster 2 began firefighting using CIG Road as a natural fire break. A tanker was also dispatched and responded with a driver only. Upon arrival, the driver was designated as a staging area manager. The Texas Forest Service was also notified and responded with a variety of resources. However, they did not engage the fire until later on. At approximately 14:30 hours, the IC reported that he drove to a vantage point to get a better view of the fire. At this time, fire suppression resources were split into 2 divisions, A and B, engaging separate portions of the fire. The command reported at this time he thought they were going to be able to contain the fire at this CIG Road, SIG Road. Upon arriving on scene, about 14:35 in Brush 51, 3 firefighters, including the victim, checked in with the staging area manager at SIG Road. It was reported the staging area manager needed assistance filling the brush trucks with water, so 1 firefighter from Brush 58 remained at the staging area with the staging area manager. It was also reported that Brush 51 was almost out of diesel fuel, so the 2 remaining firefighters, including the victim, left the incident, drove approximately 10 to 15 miles to get diesel fuel. So I don't know if it had been a really busy day or something, why they're out of fuel at the fire in the middle of the day, but maybe they've been running from one to another like you and I've done a few times, especially this time of year with these conditions. At about 15:15, local sheriff's deputy also had responded to the fire and acted as a lookout at another vantage point. He radioed command and told them the fire had crossed SIG Road and was burning north. Upon hearing this, the command activated all call to call out additional resources from his fire department. He also requested a couple of road graders from the county to assist with building a fire line, redirected some resources north to County Road U, and requested that the fire chief from his department go scout north of the fire. When 2 firefighters on Brush 51 returned at about 15:35 hours, the fire had already breached SIG Road, so they were instructed to proceed north to County Road U and meet with Booster 58 there. Command divided the fire into 3 separate divisions at this time, with engine, dozers, and personnel. The North Division was made up of the 3 firefighters from the victim's brush truck 51. Firefighters on 3 other brush trucks drove west to Highway 287, north for approximately 8 miles. So they had to kind of drive around and back 9 miles east towards the fire. The South Division was working to anchor the fire at SIG Road. A 3rd division proceeded to another section of the fire not relevant to this investigation. 14:30 hours, command and the brush trucks arrived at the edge of the fire on County Road U. By that time, sections of the fire had already crossed the road and were burning north. After assessing the situation, the command sent one of the brush trucks east on County Road U to scout the path of the fire. Firefighters on Booster 58 and Brush 51 engaged the fire along the eastern fire line. So it was going north-northeast, so it's kind of they're going in the path of the fire a little bit. The Texas Forest Service was staged at County Road U, but was sent by command to another fire that had been reported in the area. The command staged at County Road U near a natural gas pipeline compressor station. To engage the eastern edge of the fire, the firefighters in the 2 brush trucks left County Road U, drove north off-road along a barbed wire fence. The terrain was rough and consisted of rolling sandy hills with sparse grass and yucca plants, which I think are really oily. I think they burn really violently. Intermittently throughout the fields, 2 firefighters were riding in Booster 58, which was a 2-wheel drive Type 6. Wildland engine, and 2 firefighters, including the victim, were in Brush 51 following Booster 58. It was a 4-wheel drive Type 6. These were sort of medium-duty commercial chassis with a skid on the back, like a pump and portable tank, or portable pump and a tank, etc., from the pictures that are in the report. Booster 58 became stuck in the sand approximately 0.7 miles north of County Road U. The driver of 51 drove beside Booster 58 and also became stuck.
According to the information obtained during the NIOSH interviews, Brush 51 was a 4-wheel drive apparatus, but was not operating in 4-wheel drive when the apparatus became stuck in the sand.
After several attempts to free the vehicles, one of the firefighters contacted command to tell them that they'd gotten their brush truck stuck, the fire was approaching, and the apparatus was in danger. Command replied, "Don't worry about the apparatus, it's not a priority, their safety was the priority." At this point, the firefighters exited both vehicles and headed south-southeast on foot back towards County Road U in an attempt to escape the fire. It was reported that the 2 firefighters in Booster 58 were the first to exit their vehicle, followed by the driver of Brush 51, and lastly the victim. Due to poor visibility and intense heat caused by the encroaching fire, all 4 firefighters attempted to escape, but became separated when the fire was about to overtake them. Firefighters reported that they saw the victim on foot approximately 300 yards from the apparatus. However, he was not seen again until after the fire had passed over him. Upon hearing that firefighters had abandoned their apparatus, command declared firefighter loss situation. I'm assuming that's sort of like Mayday, and requested additional personnel to assist with locating and rescuing the firefighters. 2 firefighters from Booster 2 were designated as a rapid intervention crew to search for the missing firefighters. They were not aware that 2 other firefighters from Brush 51 were with Booster 58, had also gotten their apparatus stuck. RIT began searching by entering the black burned area and moving east along County Road U. They stated visibility was poor, approximately 5 feet, due to extreme winds blowing smoke, ash, and sand. They reported that they did not have communications with any of the missing firefighters and were unaware whether the firefighters were in their vehicle or on foot, or which direction they had proceeded to escape the fire. At about 5 o'clock, they were able to make contact by portable radio with one of the firefighters from Booster 58. They learned that there were 4 firefighters on foot headed east-southeast towards a windmill. 15 minutes later, firefighters in Booster 2 were able to locate both firefighters from Booster 58. One of the firefighters was wearing full structural turnout gear, had been overrun by the fire. He sustained very minimal injuries. The other firefighter from Booster 58, who was wearing Wildland firefighting pants and boots, was able to outrun the fire and sustained only smoke inhalation. The 2 firefighters in Booster 2 informed command on the radio they've located 2 from Booster 58 and attempted to drive back on County Road U towards Highway 287, where medical personnel were waiting. A larger section of the fire had burned over the county road, preventing them from returning in this direction. As a result, they were forced to find another route back to Highway 287. Command drove through the burned area until they located the driver of Brush 51 standing on a ridge near a windmill. At about 17:20 hours, he picked up this firefighter after rapid assessment, determined that he'd suffered smoke inhalation injuries but not been burned. He'd not been wearing any personal protective equipment, and he had managed to outrun the fire. He was able to find safety in an area that had already been burned over. The firefighter reported he did not know where the other firefighters were, and his portable radio and cell phone did not work. Realizing that one firefighter was still missing, the victim, the command and driver that he found from Brush 51 drove towards the location of Booster 58, where they were stuck, in an attempt to locate the victim. Upon arriving at the apparatus, the front tire was on fire and the lights and paint had melted. They were unable to locate the victim, so they continued to drive through the field in the same direction that they had traveled to escape. About 5:30, they located the victim lying face down on a dozer road north of County Road U, approximately 1.5 miles southeast of the highway of his truck. Dozer Road, it was just basically a path made for utility companies to get to their equipment and stuff. The victim was still wearing structural firefighting helmet, bunker pants, t-shirt, and the remains of his metal frames from his safety glasses. His rubber turnout boots had been removed and were lying on the road behind him. He had experienced severe third-degree burns to his torso and head, however was conscious and coherent. The IC unbuckled the victim's helmet to improve his airway and loaded him into the back seat of the vehicle. The other firefighter rode in the back seat with the victim to assist him as they traveled west on County Road U towards emergency medical personnel. The victim was very communicative and in extreme pain during the drive back, but his primary language was Spanish. He could speak and understand English. He kept asking for someone who could speak Spanish. Neither command or the firefighter spoke or understood Spanish. As a result, it's not really known what he said or wanted to say during the ride. They attempted to ask questions about what happened, but he was unable to answer. As a result, they did not communicate with them. Lieutenant transferred command to the fire chief at that time since he was occupied with the victim. He was transported to local hospital, later transferred to a large metropolitan burn center where he died, unfortunately, 11 days later due to his injuries.
Pretty sad situation when you're losing your life over a grass fire. Hey, like.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen a few of these, where people just get panicked over what it is. And I mean, it's just a grass fire that comes up in the size up, right?
Yeah.
What's the risk?
Well, speaking of that, recommendation number 1, ensure that the incident commander conducts a continuous risk assessment of the incident in terms of savable lives, savable property, and firefighter safety. The initial size up conducted by the first arriving officer allows the officer to make an assessment of the situation and conditions for developing an incident action plan for the incident.
Yeah, Commander did do an initial size up, but he felt the fire was going to be contained. Obviously, because of the extreme fire conditions, his assessment was inaccurate. The fire jumped Sig Road right away and moved northwesterly. It's unclear whether the command reevaluated the incident action plan at that time. 2 significant issues would require reevaluation. 1, of course, it jumped a natural fire break. And 2, what are the risks to life, property, and the firefighters? Like you just said, it's a grass fire. They in this case, the fire consumed 30,000 acres, did not damage any of the 5 or 6 structures in its path or injure any civilians. So, that whole basic ICS, life safety, property conservation, and incident stabilization.
Recommendation number 2, firefighters who engage in wildland firefighting should be trained to meet the minimum training requirements as required by the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, or NFPA 1051, the standard for wildland firefighter professional qualifications. Rural and volunteer firefighters increasingly manage and provide firefighting operations for wildland fires. As previously mentioned, few firefighters interviewed during this incident reported having participated in any formalized wildland firefighter training. I'm sure, like a lot of us, and I've done it before, and you just think, oh, it's just a grass fire, right? Like, we can go, we can do it, nothing special, spray some water, fire goes away, problem solved, right? And I can see with a small volunteer fire department with 20 members, whatever it was. I mean, we were on one with 40 members. You were the chief there with 120 members, but you still only get so much time, right? A volunteer firefighter only has so much time in their life that they can give to a fire department, and there's a whole bunch of training you have to do if you're an all hazards agency, right? If you're doing structure firefighting and vehicle extrication and all that kind of stuff, it's tough. Something's got to give, and I can completely understand why the wildland fires are the thing that fire chiefs or training people go, yeah, that's not that important. We'll just deal with that when it happens, and it's all fine and dandy. That being said, those are also the easier fires to kind of try to stay safe on. You're not going into structures. You can stay out of the way of it. If it's burning grass, let it burn grass. Big deal. So it's
yeah, I know.
It's for us too here, where I mean, we joke that it's 9 months, but it's probably 7 or 8 that are snow covered. How are you going to go do wildland fire training between November and March? Like, it's not happening.
I started firefighting in '86, and I didn't get my 1051 until the Nordig fire, 2013. I took a 1-day kind of seminar in Lacombe here once. There was someone teaching, like I think they call it IS 100 or something. It was just like a basic wild grass firefighting course, and fought lots of wildland fires and didn't really get training until later on. As an incident commander on some incidents, I was always worried about other departments that were coming in, like what training and experience do they have in these fires as you're bringing people in, because the risks are getting high, right?
Recommendation number 3 was fire departments and fire service agencies should ensure that firefighters fully comply with the standard fire orders and are aware of the 18 watchout situations and common denominators of fire behavior on tragedy fires. Firefighter and public safety is the first priority of Wildland Fire Management Program. To ensure wildland firefighter safety, it is important to follow the standard fire orders, recognize the watchout situations, and recognize the common denominators on behavior on tragic fires. So you talked about, I guess, you talked on the recording that didn't record that we just did about Carl Wilson, who in the 70s did some research on tragic wildland fires, tragic being, I'm assuming, to firefighters. And I mean, this is from the mid 1970s, which is hard to believe that's 50 years ago.
I know. Don't remind me.
The
But
70s
you're right.
seems like it was like, yeah, like that's like 20 years ago, right? But
Right.
oh, it's 50 years ago. And
I know.
some of the the 4 major common denominators of fire behavior on fatal and near fatal fires, on relatively small fires or deceptively quiet areas of large fires, relatively light fuels such as grass, herbs, and light brush. Ding,
Just
ding,
like
ding. That's this
Yeah.
one.
That's right.
When there is an unexpected shift in the wind direction or wind speed, and when fire responds to topographic conditions and runs uphill. Alignment of topography and wind during the burning period should always be considered a trigger point to reevaluate strategy and tactics. So it's it's like we're trying to do on this podcast is look back at tragic things that have happened in the fire service, be it vehicle driving or structures or wildland or whatever, and look for some common themes that, like you like to say, might trigger a guy's spidey senses one day.
Yep.
And you go, oh, I heard about this or whatever, and you might go left instead of right or whatever, right? Like it might be the thing that clicks in your brain that says, wait a minute, I've heard about this before. And
That's why we're here, you know.
That's why we're here.
The
that's
next,
why we're here. We're also here because we're fire nerds, but that's part of it.
I guess so. You know, the next recommendation, it talks about lookouts, communications, escape routes, and safety zones, LCES. In Canada, they use LACES. Wildland firefighting community establishes lookouts, communication systems, and escape routes and safety zones, critical to ensure the safety of wildland firefighters. This includes selecting a lookout or lookouts, which they did. They did have a lookout. They had the communications didn't work very well. They didn't all have radios, or they couldn't talk to each other. They didn't have escape routes planned. Safety zones where you can go back to. LACES is built on the 2 guidelines. Before safety is threatened, each firefighter must know the system that will be used, and LACES must continually be reevaluated as conditions change. LACES works well in other emergency responses also, such as hazmats, civil unrest situations, and flooding. Lookouts, anchor points for safety, non-combustible area to base your attack from. That's the A that they add in Canada. Communications should be pre-planned and redundant communication systems. So if you've got radios, or maybe you've got cell phones too, or a WhatsApp group or something like that, text messaging. The escape routes, emergency egress, identified and accessible, and safety zones, somewhere non-combustible, minimally combustible for safe refuge. In Nordegg, we had the fire hall was on a non-combustible area on a big gravel pad with nothing really that could burn around it. So it was a safe area, if you will.
And that's not just a wildland application. Like you can look at LACES or whatever in a lot of different facets of our job. The escape routes one made me think of in Lacombe when I was a brand new firefighter there doing traffic on Highway 2. And all the guys would say, like, when you're standing here, pay attention and know which way you're gonna go when the car's careening towards you, right? Have your escape plan figured out already, and like I mean, you can tie this almost all back to the guy doing traffic is the lookout for everybody else that's doing the real work down the road, all that kind of stuff. Like it's and you're when you're staging your truck, you're creating a safe zone. It's not just one part of our job.
Yeah, yeah. I used to always tell the pump operator, "You're my second officer. You're my safety guy, because you're looking at the scene. You can see more than I can because I'm focused on the patients trapped in the car or something." For that very example, or the fire where we're attacking the fire through the basement window or something like that. But somebody's got to be looking out if there's not anybody else doing it.
Sure. Yeah. Recommendation number 5: firefighters who engage in wildland firefighting should use personal protective equipment that meets NFPA 1977, the standard on protective clothing and equipment for wildland firefighting. 1977 covers approved PPE and clothing specific to wildland firefighting, including fire-resistant shirts and pants, gloves, boots, hard hats, and a fire shelter. The goal of this PPE is to protect firefighters against adverse environmental effects during wildland firefighting operations and provide radiant heat protection for the wildland firefighter using flame-resistant clothing and equipment without causing excessive internal heat stress, meaning it's
Yeah.
more lightweight than structural firefighting gear. And
Right. Yeah. Don't
not
fight
you're
wildland
not
fires.
in the fire like you are in a structure. And I think
Although some reports have come out that if you're in a WUI situation, so urban interface, then structural gear is better because of the radiant heat from the homes and the stuff building. It can be a problem.
yeah,
So,
I mean,
uh,
and because
yep,
then you're also dealing with structure fires, not just
right,
wildland fires.
exactly, exactly.
It's,
And they don't do fire shelters in Canada, but it's an
no,
American thing. They all carry fire shelters.
yeah. And the other thing to remember for like structural firefighters is lots of times in wildland firefighting, especially the dedicated wildland firefighters, don't all have water with them, right? We go fight a fire, we have a hose line. Even in a wildland fire, we usually aren't too far from the brush truck or whatever. Where
Right.
true wildland, which this NFPA probably covers true wildland firefighters too, they're off in the bush with like, here's your shovel, see you in 4 days.
Yep. Right.
And
Shovel. Yep.
yeah.
Personnel accountability was the next recommendation. Should be used to account for all firefighters and first responders assigned to any incident. So they didn't really have didn't know who was. They knew who was there. They just didn't know who was trapped. So I mean, they did have accountability in my opinion. The only problem, I'm going to jump down a little bit here because I know we're looking for time. But the supervisor should only have 3 to 7 resources, 5 being the optimum. That's ICS to maintain effective span of control. Incident commanders should activate additional levels within the command structure where activities become highly complex or are conducted over a large geographical area. So this commander did well, but I think he may have had too many direct reports during this, which we see on so many of these fatal emergency incidents where the commander's overwhelmed with too many resources.
And I think that's easier to do on a wildland fire because it's not a house fire where it's like, this is the house. I need 1 fire attack, 1 search and rescue, 1 ventilation. I mean, they're driving literally miles to be like, well, go to that part of the fire now, and go to that part and then there's more over there. Like you don't just have 1 crew doing something on a wildland fire. You're gonna have easily, if it's a big fire like this, you could have multiple. But they did break it up into 2 and then 3 sectors,
divisions. Yeah.
Which then you have to. But I mean, did they have enough people to then? Were the people in charge of the sectors and command also involved in firefighting? I don't know.
I think command was in charge of all the sectors, which they didn't actually have people designated as division 1, 2, 3, which would have been the thing. Yeah.
Fire department should ensure that apparatus drivers are familiar with their operation of their apparatus when driving off road. So NFPA 1500, the standard for fire department occupational safety and health program, states that the fire apparatus shall be operated only by members who have successfully completed an approved driver training program. especially with the number of apparatus they will be the different types of apparatus they'll be operating, and they must have people under them. The trainees must be supervised by a qualified driver. That was always one of my pet peeves in Lacombe. There is like somebody be like, "Well, I got my Class 2 license. I can drive the tandem axle truck."
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, well, do you know
But
how
it's
to run the
required.
truck? Well, no, but somebody
Yeah,
else can run it when we get there. And it's
yeah,
like, that's not how it works. Like, you need, just because you can, and it was tough too dealing with farmers on a volunteer department because I can drive anything. I'm a truck driver.
hmm
Well, okay, but driving is only one part of being a driver of a fire truck. There's other things you got to do when you get there. And like this points out, like, you have to know what you're doing in sandy or off road or whatever uh, terrain, and
yeah. You're absolutely right. And in this case, and off-road driving is totally different again, right? So, the truck was 1,000-gallon tank, staffed with 2 firefighters. The one was two-wheel drive. The one was four-wheel drive. They had little 250-gallon-minute pumps on them. They were driven off road, and it says they didn't have four-wheel drive engaged. They may have had improper sized tires for sandy terrain because if you have regular dual wheels, they quickly get stuck. And I used to train guys. If you're going in a field, put it in low range, put it in four-wheel drive. That way, you've got lots of torque, and it doesn't damage the truck, and you're already in four-wheel drive before you get stuck. Some of my friends, a good friend of mine, actually used to say the difference between two and four-wheel drive is about 20 feet, because that's how far further into the muck you get with the four-wheel drive. But anyway, that was a big thing. Of course, they've already said that this department had very minimal any kind of training or records or anything, so they just took it on experience of the people they had.
kind of to wrap it up here, it says the state of Texas does not have minimum qualifications for structural firefighters or volunteer firefighters. Most volunteer fire departments in Texas do not have minimum requirements for wildland firefighting, although 60% of their calls involve wildland firefighting operations, much like Alberta and the rest of Canada, other than 3 provinces. I don't think our wildland calls are that high because our wildland is covered with frozen water for a lot of the year.
Half the year. Yeah.
But basically, you can summarize that whole paragraph saying the fire department should be properly trained to deal with the calls they have to deal with,
Yep.
whether
Basically.
any call it is, right? If you're not trained in hazmat, then don't do hazmat stuff. Call the hazmat people.
But
It's
if
the
there's no
same.
law
Yeah,
requiring the training,
sure.
then that it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, and
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot for listening to another emergency traffic podcast. We appreciate your interest and hope that you find these informative and interesting. Maybe it warns you about something that happens. It's just a way to quickly learn about other incidents. So hopefully you enjoyed it. It's a kind of a quick one, but it's appropriate for this time of year. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you at the next one.
yeah. Thank you. See you later.